Robert Miller gazed out the panoramic window of the doctor's office as Dr. Alan Wallace reviewed the scans for the third time. The view of the Upper East Side, its gleaming skyscrapers reflecting the afternoon Manhattan sun, had never seemed so distant. 3 years. 3 years fighting an invisible enemy that was devouring his body from the inside out, 137 pounds lighter in the mirror, millions of dollars invested in clinics in Switzerland, in Japan. Nothing had worked. The doctor finally took off his glasses and sighed. Robert knew that sound. It was the prelude to surrender. A few months, maybe 6 if you're lucky. The treatment is no longer responding, Robert. Your body has simply stopped reacting. There's nothing more we can do with conventional medicine. Surgery is off the table given the progression of the condition. I suggest you seek psychological support. Perhaps consider palliative care to ensure comfort and dignity in the time you have left. The words echoed in the sterile silence of the room. Robert nodded mechanically, as if he were listening to an unfavorable financial report, not a sentence on his own existence. He refused all suggestions of emotional support with a wave of his hand. He didn't need therapists dissecting his soul. He had always solved his problems alone. He dismissed his driver at the hospital exit. Arthur protested, worried about his visibly shaken boss, but Robert was firm. He wanted to walk. He wanted to feel the city he had built, literally. His projects dotted the Manhattan skyline like monuments to his ambition. 23 commercial towers, 17 high-end residential condos, 3 shopping malls. Every brick a testament to his success. Every contract a victory over the poverty he had known in his childhood. But for what? For whom? Robert walked down Park Avenue, then turned toward downtown. His steps had no destination. The afternoon faded into orange hues as he wandered through increasingly unfamiliar streets. The contrast was brutal. From the vertical gardens and glass facades of Midtown, he had descended into the urban decay of the Lower East Side. Historic buildings with peeling paint, cracked sidewalks, people rushing past, avoiding eye contact. It was like observing 2 overlapping cities, one hiding the other. Just like him. A facade of power concealing absolute emptiness. 53 years old. No living relatives since his mother passed away a decade ago. 3 failed marriages, all. Ending when his wives realized they could never compete with his devotion to work. No children. He'd never had time to build a family, too busy building with concrete. Friends? He knew hundreds of people, but not one he would call if he disappeared tomorrow. The thought hit him with renewed force. He could simply cease to exist and the world would keep spinning. His companies would change hands, others would live in his buildings, and in a generation, no one would remember Robert Miller. That's when he heard the shouting. At the entrance of a department store, 2 uniformed security guards were dragging a child outside. A girl, tiny. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old. Her bare feet scraped the ground as she struggled, clutching a crumpled package of cookies to her chest. "Get out of here, you little pest. I don't want to see you back here, you hear me? Next time I'm calling the cops." The taller guard raised his arm. Robert didn't think. His body, weak and sick, moved with a speed he hadn't possessed in months. "Take your hand off her. Now!" His voice cut through the air like a blade. The moody 2 men turned, surprised. Robert positioned himself between them and the girl, who had fallen to her knees on the sidewalk. "Who are you?" "This is none of your business, sir." The girl was stealing. Robert glanced back. The girl held the cookies as if they were a treasure. Her clothes were in tatters. Her tangled hair covered part of her thin face, but it was her eyes that captured him. Brown, large, frightened, but not of him. There was something else in that gaze. Recognition. Curiosity. "How much for the cookies?" Robert asked, pulling out his wallet. "What?" The guard hesitated, thrown off balance. "How much?" Robert repeated more firmly. $5, but it's not about the money. She can't keep coming in here, scaring customers, making a mess." Robert held out a $50 bill. "This covers the cookies and any inconvenience. The girl won't be back. Now, if you'll excuse me." The guards exchanged confused glances. Robert's authority was palpable, even in his weakened state. They backed away, muttering, and went back inside the store. Robert turned to the girl who was watching him with that same undeciphered expression. "What's your name?" The girl didn't answer immediately. She scanned Robert from head to toe, as if assessing his intentions. Finally, in a hoarse voice from disuse, she said, "Laura." "Laura. A beautiful name. Are you hungry?" She nodded slowly, pressing the cookies against her. "Come with me. I'll get you something real to eat." Laura didn't move. Her small hands were trembling. "Why?" The question caught him off guard. Why, indeed? Why was a man who had just received a death sentence caring about a strange child on the street? Why did he feel an inexplicable connection to those tired eyes? "Because I'm alone too," he heard his own voice answer, surprising himself. Something shifted in Laura's face. The suspicion dissolved a little. She stood up slowly, still holding the cookies, and gave an almost imperceptible nod. Robert led her to a nearby diner. It wasn't a fancy place, just a family-owned spot with formica tables and laminated menus. Laura sat down cautiously, as if the chair might disappear. When the waiter approached, Robert ordered a cheeseburger with the works, fries, an orange juice, and a chocolate milkshake. Laura's eyes widened. While they waited, Robert observed the girl more closely. Beneath the dirt and rags, there was a quiet dignity about her. She didn't whine, didn't ask for anything. She just waited, quiet, her hands on the table, her thin fingers intertwined. "How long have you been on the streets?" he asked gently. Laura looked out the window, where night was beginning to blanket the city. "A long time, since Grandma went away." "Went away?" Laura shook her head. "She always said I shouldn't say it like that, that when someone goes away forever, you have to say they've rested. So Grandma rested. 4 months ago." Robert felt a tightness in his chest. "And your parents?" "My mom, arrested when I was little. The same thing you have." The words hit Robert like a punch. "How do you know what I have?" Laura met his gaze with a wisdom impossible for her age. "I see it. Grandma always saw it too. She said that sadness lives in our bodies. You're very sad. That's why you got sick." The waiter brought the food, interrupting the moment. Laura looked at the plate as if it were a mirage. Slowly, she picked up the burger with both hands and took the first bite. Her eyes closed. Robert didn't touch his own sandwich. He watched Laura eat with a hunger that went beyond the stomach, a hunger born of years of neglect and loneliness. She chewed slowly, savoring every piece, as if she feared the food would vanish. When she had finished half the burger, Laura stopped and pushed the plate toward Robert. "For you." "No, Laura, it's all yours. But you need to eat, or you won't get better." "I'm fine, you can keep going." Laura hesitated, then pulled the plate back. "My grandma used to say that eating alone doesn't heal anyone. You have to have love with it. She would make soup and sing. I always got better. And you, have you been sick?" Laura nodded. "I always had colds, stomach aches. But Grandma took care of me. Now there's no one." Robert felt something strange happening inside him. A forgotten sensation, dormant for years under layers of cynicism and isolation. It was as if a door locked for decades was slowly creaking open, letting in a light that hurt his eyes, accustomed to the dark. "What if there was?" he heard himself ask. "What if you had someone to take care of you again?" Laura stared at him, processing. "You?" "Me." The silence between them was filled by the sounds of the diner, clinking plates, distant conversations, the hum of the refrigerator. Laura put the burger down on the plate and wiped her hands on what was left of her shirt. "Grandma always said that when two lonely people find each other, it's because the universe is putting the broken pieces back together. You're broken. I am too. Maybe we can stick together." Robert felt his eyes burn. How long had it been since he'd cried? Maybe never. Men like him didn't cry, but now, in front of this child who spoke like an old soul and saw him as no one ever had, something inside him broke. "How do we do that?" he asked, his voice thick. Laura smiled for the first time. It was a small, shy, but real smile. "We go to your house. I take a bath, sleep in a bed, and at night before we sleep, we do Grandma's ritual." "What ritual?" Laura held out her hand across the table, palm up. "It's a secret. I can only show you if you promise you'll believe." Robert looked at that tiny, dirty hand, offered, to him like a bridge between two worlds. He had built empires, commanded thousands of employees, negotiated millions in contracts, but never in his entire life had a decision felt as monumental as taking that hand. He extended his own, and when his fingers touched Laura's, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. He felt hope. Robert's Park Avenue penthouse was a perfect reflection of his life. 3,200 square feet of Italian marble, European designer furniture, contemporary art on the walls, and a 180-degree view of the city. Everything was impeccable. Everything was expensive. Everything was empty. Laura stopped at the entrance, her bare feet hesitating on the gleaming floor. Her eyes scanned the room with a mixture of awe and discomfort, as if she had entered a museum where touching was forbidden. "It's so big," she murmured. "It's the home of someone who never planned on sharing it," Robert admitted, closing the door. "But that's different now. Now there's you." He guided her through the apartment, showing her the rooms. Laura listened in silence, gently touching the furniture as if it were fragile. When they reached the guest room, Robert opened the door. "This can be your room. Tomorrow we'll buy everything you need. Clothes, toys, books, whatever you want." Laura entered slowly. The king-size bed dominated the space, covered in pristine white sheets. She approached and touched the fabric with reverence. "Can I really sleep here?" "You can. But first, how about a bath?" Robert led her to the bathroom. As the tub filled, he brought one of his clean t-shirts to serve as a temporary nightgown. Laura watched the steaming water with wide eyes. "I'll leave you to it. If you need anything, just call." "Mr. Miller?" He turned. "Just Robert." "No, Mr." Laura bit her lip. "Robert, then. Grandma always said that clean water on the outside doesn't help if you're dirty on the inside. You need to clean the inside too." "How so?" "I'll show you later. In the ritual." Robert nodded and left, closing the door. While he waited in the living room, he called his assistant, Megan, ignoring the fact that it was almost 9 at night. "Megan, I need you to do something for me first thing tomorrow. Contact the best family law attorneys in New York. I want to start adoption proceedings." The silence on the other end was long. "Mr. Miller, did you say adoption?" "Yes. And also arrange for a personal shopper. I need clothes, shoes, school supplies, everything for an 8-year-old girl. Have them here at 9 a.m. "May I ask what's going on?" "What's going on is that I've finally found something more important than building skyscrapers." He hung up before Megan could respond. He heard the bathwater stop, and minutes later, Laura appeared in the living room. Wrapped in the t-shirt that went down to her knees, her wet hair falling over her shoulders, she looked even smaller and more fragile. But there was something different in her face, a glow that wasn't there before. "Better?" Robert asked. "Much. It's been a long time since I had a hot bath." Laura approached the sofa and sat next to him, leaving a respectful space between them. "Can we do the ritual now?" Robert adjusted himself on the sofa, facing her. "I'm ready, teach me." Laura took a deep breath, as if preparing for something important. "Grandma taught me when I was very little and got sick. She said our body is like a house. When the house is sad and dark, bad things get in easily. But when the house is full of light, of love, the bad things can't stay." Robert listened, fascinated by the seriousness with which she spoke. "So every night before sleeping, we did this." Laura closed her eyes. "We close our eyes and imagine a very bright golden light coming in through our head. This light goes down slowly, passing through every part of the body, pushing out everything that's bad, everything that hurts." She opened one eye to check if Robert was following. He closed his too. "Now imagine that light reaching the place that's sick. Imagine it, getting strong, bright, warm. And you tell your body, you are strong, you will get well, I love you and I will take care of you." Laura's voice was soft, hypnotic. Robert tried to do as she asked, but his skepticism scratched at the attempt. Imagining golden lights, talking to his own body. It was all so childish, so naive. But then he felt Laura's small hand slide over his. "You don't have to believe right away. Grandma said faith is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. You just have to try." "And I'll try with you." Robert squeezed her hand. The palm was warm, small, confident, and he tried again. This time he allowed himself to imagine. A golden light descending through his throat, crossing his chest, reaching the dark places where the disease lodged. He imagined this light pushing away the shadows, warming, healing. "Now tell your body you love it." "I love you," Robert whispered, feeling both ridiculous and sincere at the same time. "You are strong. You will get well." They stayed like that for a few minutes, hands clasped, eyes closed, breathing together. When Laura finally let go of his hand, Robert opened his eyes. She was smiling. "See, it wasn't hard. Do you really believe this works? Grandma got better many times doing this, and so did I. But she said the most important thing isn't the imagined light. It's the love we put into it. Because love is real. Love is real medicine." Robert felt something move in his chest. It wasn't the familiar pain of the disease. It was something different, lighter, warmer. "Thank you for teaching me." "You're welcome. We'll do it again tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. Every day until you're completely well." She spoke with such certainty that it was impossible not to be infected by her faith. Robert stood up and held out his hand. "Let's get you to bed then. Tomorrow will be a busy day." Laura took his hand and let him guide her to the room. When she lay down in the enormous bed, she seemed even smaller, almost disappearing among the pillows. "Robert," she called as he was about to leave. "Yes. You're not going to go away during the night, are you? Like Grandma?" Robert's heart broke. "No, Laura, I promise I'll be here when you—" "I'll be here. Wake up." She nodded, satisfied, and pulled the blanket up to her chin. Robert turned off the light and left the door ajar, allowing the glow from the hallway to seep in. Back in his own room, he lay down, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in 3 years, he didn't think about the disease before falling asleep. He thought about an 8-year-old girl who believed in golden light and the power of love. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Robert Miller fell asleep with a smile on his face. The next morning, he was awakened by a noise in the kitchen. He jumped out of bed, his heart racing, confused thoughts flooding his mind. Then he remembered. Laura. He found her at the kitchen island, surrounded by scattered ingredients. She had found eggs, bread, butter, and was clearly trying to prepare something. "Good morning," she said cheerfully. "I tried to make breakfast, but I don't know how to work the stove." Robert laughed. It was the first time he had truly laughed in years. "Let's make it together then." They prepared scrambled eggs and toast, working side by side. Laura told stories about her grandmother, about the places she had slept on the streets, about the stray dogs that were her only friends. Robert listened to it all, recording every detail, building a map of the life of this extraordinary child that fate had placed in his path. At 9 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. It was Megan, accompanied by 2 women carrying enormous shopping bags. Laura hid behind Robert, shy in front of the strangers. "Laura, these are friends of mine. They came to help you pick out some new clothes. Is that okay?" Laura nodded slowly. The next 2. Ours were a succession of trying on clothes, shoes, accessories. Laura tried everything on carefully, as if afraid of ruining it. But when she saw herself in the mirror in a light blue dress and new sandals, her eyes filled with tears. "Am I pretty?" "You're beautiful," Robert answered, a lump forming in his throat. After the women left, leaving Laura's room filled with new clothes, Megan stayed behind. She had to sit down, clearly processing the situation. "Mr. Miller, I need to understand. What is happening?" Robert told her everything, the medical sentence, the encounter with Laura, the impulsive decision to bring her home. Megan listened in silence, and when he finished, there were tears in her eyes. "You're doing a beautiful thing, but you need to be aware that the adoption process is complex. They'll investigate your life, your circumstances, And with your recent medical history, there could be complications. I know, but it doesn't matter how much time I have left. I want her to have a home. I want to ensure that no matter what happens, she'll be protected. Megan nodded. I'll get the best lawyers. We'll do everything by the book. After Megan left, Robert found Laura in her room, meticulously organizing her new clothes. She looked up when he entered. Is all of this really mine? All yours. And tomorrow we'll buy more things. Books, toys, whatever you want. Laura dropped the shirt she was holding and ran to him, wrapping her arms tightly around his waist. Robert stood frozen for a moment, then slowly put his arms around her. She was so small, so fragile, but in that hug, there was a strength he had never experienced. Thank you for not giving up on me, she whispered against his chest. Robert closed his eyes, feeling something inside him rearranging itself, healing. Thank you for not giving up on me either. The following weeks transformed Robert's penthouse into something unrecognizable. Where there was once silence and obsessive order, there now echoed laughter and a charming mess. Laura's drawings covered the refrigerator, her shoes were scattered by the entrance, and the apartment smelled of homemade cookies they baked together on Sundays. But the most profound change was happening inside Robert. Every night, religiously, he and Laura performed the ritual. They sat on the living room sofa, holding hands, and she guided him through the visualization of the golden light. At first, Robert had to force his concentration, his skepticism forming an invisible barrier. But as the days passed, something began to change. He noticed he was waking up with more energy. The constant aches that accompanied him lessened. The eternal fatigue that weighed on his shoulders grew lighter. Robert attributed it to an emotional improvement, to the renewed purpose Laura had brought. But there was something more, something he couldn't explain. In the third week during breakfast, Laura stopped eating and studied him intently. You're different. Different how? Your eyes. They used to be gray, like a rain cloud. Now they have blue in them, and your face isn't so hollow. Robert touched his own face, feeling the contours. It was true. While shaving that morning, he had noticed his cheeks didn't seem so sunken. They were small details, but they were there. It must be because I'm eating better. You're a great assistant chef. Laura smiled, but there was wisdom in her eyes. It's not just the food, it's the love. I told you love heals. Robert wanted to believe, but decades of rationality held him back. Still, something compelled him to check. That afternoon, without telling Laura so as not to create expectations, he called Dr. Wallace's office. Alan, I need new scans. Robert, we talked about this. I don't want to feed you false hope. The treatment wasn't responding. I know what you said, but I'm feeling better, significantly better. I need to know if it's real or if I'm deluding myself. The doctor sighed. All right, come in tomorrow morning, but promise me you won't be devastated if the results are the same. I promise. Robert didn't tell Laura about the tests. That night during the ritual, she noticed he was more tense. Are you worried about something? It's not worry, it's more like anticipation. For what? To find out if miracles exist. Laura squeezed his hand. They do. Grandma always said that miracles aren't things that fall from the sky ready-made. They're things we build with faith and love brick by brick every day. Robert smiled. You really do talk, just like your grandmother. It's because she lives in here. Laura touched her chest. And now you live here too. All the people we love live in our hearts forever. The next day, Robert woke before dawn. He left a note for Laura and asked Clara, the housekeeper he'd hired to help with the house, to stay with her. At the hospital, he underwent a battery of tests, MRI, CT scan, blood work. Dr. Wallace supervised everything with professional skepticism, but Robert noticed that as the results came in, the doctor's expression changed. This isn't possible, Alan murmured, comparing old images with the new ones. What's not possible? The doctor held up 2 CT scans side by side. Look here. This is from 3 weeks ago. See these dark areas? They indicated aggressive progression. Now look at this one from today. Robert moved closer, his heart pounding. The dark areas were smaller, considerably smaller. What does that mean? Alan took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes, as if he didn't trust his own vision. It means there's regression. Significant regression. Robert, your body is responding. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it's fighting. And it's winning. The words echoed in the silence of the room. Robert sat down heavily, processing the information. It was real. It wasn't an illusion, it wasn't psychological. His body was getting better. How much time? He asked, his voice trembling. If this trend continues, and I emphasize if, because I've never seen anything like this in 30 years of medicine, we're talking about remission, possibly complete remission. Robert covered his face with his hands. He wasn't crying, but his body trembled with the force of the emotion. Alan placed a hand on his shoulder. What changed, Robert? What have you done differently in the last few weeks? Robert lowered his hands and looked at the doctor. I adopted a daughter, or I'm trying to. She's 8 years old and believes that love heals. Alan was silent for a long moment, then surprisingly he smiled. You know, there are studies on the impact of emotional state on the immune system. Connection, purpose, love, all of it releases neurotransmitters and hormones that strengthen the body's defenses. I've never seen it happen on such a dramatic scale, but I'm not going to question it. Your daughter might be right. She always is. Robert left the hospital in a state of shock. He drove back home without noticing the route, his mind spinning with the revelation. When he entered the penthouse, he found Laura doing her homework at the dining table. He watched her for a moment, this child, who had appeared out of nowhere and turned his world upside down. Laura looked up and smiled. How did it go? Robert knelt beside her, bringing himself to her eye level. You were right. Love really does heal. Laura's eyes widened. The tests were good? They were very good. I'm getting better, Laura, for real. Laura dropped her pencil and threw her arms around his neck, squeezing with all the strength of her small body. I knew it. I knew it would work. Grandma never lied. Robert hugged her back, burying his face in her hair. Thank you. Thank you. For saving me. You saved me, too. We saved each other. They stayed like that for long minutes, two survivors holding on to each other in the middle of the storm they had weathered together. In the following days, Robert attacked the adoption process with renewed energy. The lawyers worked non-stop preparing the paperwork. But complications soon arose. Megan arrived at the penthouse one afternoon with a worried expression. She asked to speak with Robert alone in his office. The social workers are questioning the adoption. They argue that your recent medical history represents a risk of instability for the child. They're afraid Laura will go through another traumatic separation if your condition worsens. Robert clenched his fists. But I'm getting better. The scans prove it. I know, and the lawyers have already presented the latest medical reports. But the system is cautious. They want guarantees you can't give. No one can. So what do we do? Megan hesitated. There's a hearing scheduled for next week. Laura will have to speak with the social worker, and you'll need to convince them that you can offer a stable home. Robert ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Ironic, isn't it? Spent my whole life building solid structures, and now I can't prove I can offer stability to one child. You'll do it. You just need to show them what I see every day. A man transformed by love. That night, Robert told Laura about the hearing. She listened in silence, processing. They think you're going to leave me. Not on purpose. They're afraid I'll get sick again and that you'll suffer. Laura was quiet for a moment, then got up from the sofa and went to her room. She returned carrying a worn notebook. It was her grandmother's, filled with notes and drawings. Grandma wrote down everything she believed in here. She said family isn't about not being afraid of loss. It's about choosing to stay together even with the fear. I'm scared of losing you, Robert, every day. But I'd rather have you and be scared than not have you at all. Robert pulled her into a hug. We're going to fight for this. Together. Yes, together. The following week, they prepared for the hearing. Robert rehearsed arguments, gathered documents, mobilized witnesses, but he knew that in the end it would all depend on Laura, on her strength, her clarity, her ability to make others see what was so obvious to them. The night before the hearing, They performed the ritual with even more intensity. Laura held his hands and closed her eyes. Tomorrow will be fine, because we've already won the hardest part. We found each other. The rest is just paperwork. Robert squeezed her hands. How did you get so wise at 8 years old? I'm not wise. I just learned from the wisest person in the world, and now I'm teaching you. She opened her eyes and smiled, and in that smile Robert saw the entire future he wanted to build. A future where he wasn't alone, where there was laughter and hugs and nightly rituals. A future worth fighting for. The family courtroom was smaller than Robert had imagined. Beige walls, a large wooden table, uncomfortable chairs. He sat next to his lawyers, Mr. Frank Costello and Ms. Patricia Adams, while Laura waited outside with Megan. The social worker assigned to the case, Ms. Sylvia Rogers, entered carrying a thick folder. She was a middle-aged woman, her hair in a severe bun, her eyes having seen too many sad stories. With her came the child psychologist, Dr. Beatrice Fisher, younger, with a kind but professional expression. Mr. Miller, Ms. Rogers began, adjusting her glasses, we are here to assess whether the adoption of Laura Maria Santos is in the best interest of the child. You understand that our priority is her well-being, not necessarily your desires? I understand perfectly, and that's exactly why I'm confident that this adoption is what's best for Laura. The social worker flipped through the documents. Your medical history is concerning. 3 years of treatment for a serious condition, a terminal prognosis just a month ago. Laura has already suffered multiple traumatic separations. Exposing her to the risk of a similar situation would be irresponsible on our part. Mr. Costello leaned forward. If I may, Ms. Rogers, Mr. Miller's most recent scans, signed by Dr. Alan Wallace, one of New York's most respected oncologists, indicate significant remission. The situation has changed drastically. Sylvia examined the reports. Remissions can be temporary. There are no guarantees. There are no guarantees in any situation, Robert interjected, controlling his tone. Healthy parents can get sick tomorrow. Accidents happen. Life offers no guarantees. What I can offer is my absolute commitment to Laura's well-being. Today, and for every day I am given. And if your condition worsens, what if Laura has to go through the grieving process again? Then she will go through it surrounded by love, support, and resources. I have left a will ensuring she will be cared for financially. I have appointed legal guardians should anything happen to me. I have done everything in my power to secure her future. Dr. Fisher, the psychologist, finally spoke. Mr. Miller, I've read the reports. Laura was in a situation of extreme vulnerability. Homeless, malnourished, with no family references, you appeared and radically changed her life. Could this not be a trauma response from her? A rushed attachment to a savior figure? Robert took a deep breath. I can see how it looks. But who saved whom, Doctor? I was waiting for the end, alone, without purpose, with no reason to go on. Laura gave me something to live for. It wasn't her who desperately attached to me. It was both of us, two survivors, clinging to each other to keep from drowning. Dr. Fisher made some notes. We need to speak with Laura. Alone. Laura entered the room moments later, wearing the blue dress she had chosen for the occasion. Her hair was held back with a barrette Robert had given her. She looked around, assessed each person, and sat in the indicated chair, her legs dangling a few inches above the floor. Hi, Laura, Dr. Fisher began in a soft voice. My name is Beatrice. Can I ask you a few questions? You can. Do you understand why you're here? Because some people think Robert can't be my dad. Laura spoke with surprising clarity. They think he's going to get sick again and I'll be sad. And you're not afraid of that? Laura was quiet for a moment, thoughtful. I am. Every morning I go to his room to check if he's breathing. The raw honesty of her words shocked the room. Ms. Rogers leaned forward. And doesn't that make you sad? It does. But you know what would make me sadder? Not having him. Losing him now would be horrible, but never having had him would be worse. Laura, Miss Rogers intervened. "You've already lost very important people. Your mother, your grandmother. Wouldn't it be better to be with a family where you don't run the risk of losing someone again?" "No. One can promise they won't go away," Laura replied with that impossible wisdom. "Grandma didn't promise and she went away. My mom didn't promise and she went away. But they didn't want to. It just happened. Robert doesn't promise he'll stay forever either. But he promises that while he's here he'll love me, and that's all that matters." Beatrice exchanged a look with Sylvia. "But what if you were placed with a family with a mother and a father, siblings, no history of medical problems? Wouldn't that be better?" Laura's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained steady. "Family isn't about having two people instead of one, or about not being scared. Grandma taught me that family is who stays by your side when things are hard. Robert found me on the street, dirty, stealing food. He could have given me money and walked away. But he took me to his home. He gave me a bath, clothes, food, love. He chose to stay by my side when I had nothing. That's family." A tear rolled down her cheek, but she didn't wipe it away. "And I choose to stay by his side too. When he was sick, almost gone, I taught him how to have hope again. I took care of him, we take care of each other. Isn't that family?" The silence in the room was absolute. Dr. Fisher's eyes were misty. Even Ms. Rogers, with all her experience and professional toughness, seemed shaken. Laura continued, her voice gaining strength. "You're afraid I'll suffer if he goes away, but I'll tell you a secret." She leaned forward, as if sharing something sacred. "Grandma said that having someone to love, even knowing you might lose them, is better than never having anyone at all. Because the love doesn't go away when the person does, it stays in here." She touched her chest. "Forever." Ms. Rogers discreetly wiped her eyes. "Laura, you are a very special girl. I'm not. I just know what's important. And what's important is that Robert is my dad. Maybe he's not like other dads. Maybe we're not like other families, but we are a family, a real one." Beatrice asked a few more questions, but it was clear that Laura had already won over the room. When she left asking for Robert to come with her, the two professionals remained alone with the lawyers. 20 minutes later, they called Robert back in. He entered with his heart pounding. "Mr. Miller," Ms. Rogers began, and for the first time there was a softness in her voice. "I rarely see such a genuine connection between an adult and a child. Laura has demonstrated exceptional emotional maturity and absolute clarity about what she wants," Dr. Fisher continued. "From a psychological standpoint, she is thriving. She's gained weight, is enrolled in school, and shows security and affection. The bond with you is real and profound." Robert could barely breathe. "Does that mean—" Ms. Rogers consulted her documents. "We still need a formal medical declaration attesting to your current condition and prognosis. If Dr. Wallace can provide that, we will be willing to approve the adoption on a provisional basis, with regular follow-ups for 6 months." Robert felt his legs weaken. Thank you so much." "Don't thank us," Dr. Fisher smiled for the first time. "Thank Laura. She was the most eloquent advocate I've ever seen in this room." When Robert walked out, he found Laura sitting in the hallway swinging her legs. She looked up, anxious. "So?" Robert knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "You were incredible in there, perfect. So I get to stay with you?" "You do, officially, legally, forever." Laura threw herself into his arms, and Robert lifted her off the ground, spinning with her in the courthouse hallway. Megan and the lawyers came out of the room, smiling at the celebration. "We still need to get the final medical report," Mr. Costello advised, "but it's a formality now. Laura won everyone over in there." On the way home, Laura was radiant. "See? I told you it would work out." "You were so brave. How did you manage to speak?" "So well." Laura shrugged. "I just told the truth. Grandma always said the truth has power." Back at the penthouse, they celebrated with pizza and ice cream. Laura insisted on doing the ritual with even more dedication that night. "Now we're a real family," she said, holding Robert's hands. "So the ritual is stronger, because it's a father and daughter's love." Robert closed his eyes, feeling the energy of those words. A father and daughter's love. It was something he had never imagined experiencing, and now it was his reality. In the following days, Dr. Wallace provided the necessary report. He wrote with conviction about the exceptional remission, attributing it to factors that medicine didn't fully understand but could not deny. Robert Miller had a future ahead of him. The adoption was finalized in a simple ceremony. Laura Maria Santos became Laura Maria Miller. When they signed the papers, Laura held the pen with solemnity. "Now we're the same even in our names," she said, smiling. "Now we are," Robert confirmed, signing below her. But not everything was perfect. That night, during dinner, Laura started to feel dizzy. Robert, alarmed, asked if she was okay. "Just tired," she murmured. But when she tried to get up from the table, her legs gave out. The hospital was quiet that night. Robert held Laura's hand as they waited for the test results. She slept on the gurney, connected to monitors, her small body looking even smaller under the white sheet. The fainting spell had happened 3 hours ago, and since then Robert felt as if he were trapped in a nightmare. Dr. Wallace entered the room with an expression Robert knew well. It was the same one he had seen on the doctor's face months ago when he received his own diagnosis. Compassion mixed with helplessness. "Let's talk outside." Robert looked at Laura, reluctant to let go. Alan placed a hand on his shoulder. "She's stable. She'll be asleep for a few more hours. Let's go." In the hallway, under the harsh fluorescent light, Alan showed him the results. Blood work, nutritional panels, complete analyses. "Robert, Laura is suffering from severe chronic malnutrition and acute anemia. The years on the street took a heavy toll. Her body was in survival mode for so long that even with proper nutrition these past few weeks, it hasn't been able to fully recover. Her organs are weakened, her immune system compromised." Robert felt the floor disappear from under his feet. "Is it serious?" "It's very serious. She's going to need intensive treatment, IV supplementation, strict nutritional monitoring, possibly a blood transfusion. Fortunately, we caught it early. With proper care, she'll make a full recovery, but it will take time." "How much time?" "Months, maybe 6, maybe more. It depends on how her body responds." Robert leaned against the wall, processing. Cruel irony. He was healing while Laura, the girl who had taught him about healing, was sick. "Is she going to be okay?" he asked, his voice trembling. "She will, but she's going to need you more than ever." Alan paused. "You know what to do, Robert. She taught you." Robert looked up, confused. "What?" "Love, care, presence. It's not just her body that needs treatment. It's her soul, too. Years of abandonment, deprivation, fear. Now she finally has security, but her body still carries the scars. Be for her what she was for you." Robert nodded, swallowing back tears. "I will be." When Laura woke up a few hours later, she was confused. Her eyes scanned the room until they found Robert sitting by, the bed holding her hand. "What happened?" "You fainted, sweetie. I brought you to the hospital." Laura tried to sit up, but Robert gently stopped her. "I need to go home to do the ritual, or you won't get better." Robert smiled despite his anguish. "Today I'm taking care of you, okay? It's my turn." "But I'm not sick, just tired." "You are, Laura. Your body has been through a lot on the streets. It needs treatment, special care." Laura was quiet, processing. "Like you? Like me. But now I'm better, and I'm going to use all my strength to make you better too." Laura's eyes filled with tears. "You're not going to give up on me?" Robert leaned in, kissing her forehead. "Never. You're my daughter. And families don't give up on each other, remember?" She nodded, letting the tears fall. Robert wiped them away with his thumb. In the following days, Laura was admitted for initial treatment. Robert never left her side. He set up a makeshift office in the hospital room, working remotely but always present. When Laura was awake, they talked, played games, watched movies. When she slept, he stayed there, vigilant. Megan brought work, but also storybooks, games, anything to keep Laura entertained. Clara, the housekeeper, showed up with homemade meals, trying to tempt Laura to eat more. Dr. Wallace visited daily, monitoring every bit of progress. But the treatment was hard. The medications made Laura nauseous. The procedures were uncomfortable. There were nights she cried in frustration, asking why she had to go through this. On one of those nights, Robert lay beside her in the hospital bed, holding her as she sobbed against his chest. "It's not fair. I did everything right. I took care of you, did the ritual every day. I believed it would work. Why am I sick now?" Robert stroked her hair. "Sometimes life isn't fair, Laura. But you know what I learned from you? That it's not about avoiding bad things. It's about having someone by your side when they happen. But I'm tired. Tired of fighting." "I know, I was too, remember? I had given up. But then you showed up and taught me how to have hope again. Now it's my turn to teach you." "How?" Robert pulled back a little to look her in the eyes. "Let's make a deal. Every day, we'll find one. Good thing that happened. It can be small. A smile, a tasty food, a funny joke. And we'll save these good things like treasures. Because in the end, life is made of these treasures." Laura sniffled. "What if there's nothing good?" "There's always something. Always. Today, for example, the good thing is that I'm here with you, and you're here with me. Isn't that good?" Laura thought, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, it's very good. Then that's our treasure for today." From that conversation on, they created the ritual of treasures. At the end of each day, they shared the good things they had found. At first, they were simple things: a kind nurse, a sunbeam coming through the window, a funny cartoon. But as the weeks passed, the treasures grew. Laura started to gain weight. The color returned to her face. The tests showed progressive improvement. Dr. Wallace was impressed with the speed of her recovery. "She's responding exceptionally well," he told Robert. "It's not just the medical treatment, it's the emotional environment. She's surrounded by love." Robert smiled. "I'm just giving back what she gave me." After 6 weeks, Laura was discharged, but the treatment would continue at home. Supplements, a specific diet, regular checkups. Robert transformed their routine around Laura's care. He woke up early to prepare nutritious and colorful breakfasts, turning every meal into a fun event. He created games where Laura earned points for every medication taken correctly, every nutritional goal met. He researched healthy recipes, and they cooked them together, making recovery a shared adventure. At night, before bed, in addition to the ritual of treasures, Robert reversed the golden light ritual. Now it was he who guided, visualizing Laura as healthy, strong, radiant, and she participated, imagining her own body growing stronger. One day, 2 months after her hospitalization, Laura was playing in the living room when she stopped and looked at Robert. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "When I taught you the ritual, it was to heal you. But in the end, it healed me too." Robert sat down beside her. "How so?" Laura thought before answering. "When Grandma went away, I was alone. And when you're alone, even if your body is okay, you get sick on the inside, like your soul is hungry. My soul was hungry all that time. And now? Now my soul is fed because I have you. And then the body can get well too because it's not fighting alone anymore." Robert hugged her. "You continue to be the wisest person I know." "I'm not wise. I just learned from Grandma, and now from you." 3 months later, at a routine checkup, Dr. Wallace gave them the news they had been waiting for. Laura was completely recovered. All her levels were normal. Her body had responded to the treatment, the proper nutrition, and the unconditional love. "She's healed," Alan announced, smiling. "She can return to normal activities, full-time school, playing, everything." Laura jumped from the chair and hugged Robert. "We did it!" "We did. Together." On the way home, Laura was euphoric, making plans. She wanted to play soccer at school again, learn to play the guitar, adopt a dog. Robert listened to it all, his heart overflowing. 6 months ago, he was a man waiting to disappear. Now he had a daughter full of life, making plans for the future. That night, sitting on the sofa, Laura held Robert's hand. "Dad?" It was the first time she had called him that directly. Robert felt his eyes burn. "Yes, honey?" Thank you for not giving up on me when I got sick. Thank you for not giving up on me when I was sick. Laura snuggled against him. We're a pretty good team, huh? The best team there is. They sat there in comfortable silence, watching the city light up through the windows. Two survivors who had found in each other not just companionship, but purpose. Not just affection, but a true family. And the most incredible part was that their journey was just beginning. A year had passed since Robert found Laura at the entrance of that store, a year that had completely transformed their lives, in ways neither could have predicted. Robert was in his office when Megan entered with a peculiar expression, a mixture of surprise and admiration. "Mr. Miller, I need to show you something." She placed a stack of letters on his desk. Robert picked up the first one and began to read. It was from a mother thanking him for a talk he had given at a hospital about how emotional support had been crucial in her recovery. The second was from a father who, inspired by Robert's story, had decided to seek psychological help while facing treatment for a serious illness. There were dozens of them, all from people who had somehow been touched by Robert and Laura's story. "How did these people hear about us?" Robert asked. "The psychologist, Dr. Fisher, asked for your permission to share the case at a psychology conference. Anonymously, of course, but the story spread. Hospitals, support groups, social media. People are calling it the miracle of love." Robert placed the letters back on the desk, moved. "Not a miracle. It was hard work, faith, and a lot of love." Megan smiled. "That's why it's miraculous. It shows that those things work." That night, Robert talked to Laura about the letters. She was doing her homework at the dining table, now an exemplary fifth grader. "People want to know our story," he said. Laura looked up from her notebook. "Why?" "Because they found it special, the way we helped each other." Laura thought for a moment, chewing on the end of her pencil. "Grandma always said that when you receive a blessing, you have to share it. Otherwise, it stops growing." "You think we should share it?" "I do, but not just the story. We could help for real, like Grandma used to help the neighbors when they were sick." Robert sat down next to her. "What are you thinking?" Laura put down her pencil, excited. "We could make a place where kids who are hungry like I was could get a good meal, and where sick people like you were could talk and not be alone." Robert felt a spark of inspiration. "A foundation?" "Yes, the Mariana Foundation." Mariana was her grandmother's name. Robert had never met the woman, but he felt as if he knew her through the stories and teachings Laura shared. It was only right to honor her. "Let's do it then. We'll create the Mariana Foundation." In the following months, Robert dove into the project with the same intensity he had used to build his corporate empire. But this time, he wasn't driven by ambition or accumulation. He was driven by purpose. He acquired a property in Greenwich Village and hired architects to design a welcoming space. He didn't want it to look like a hospital or a cold institution. He wanted it to be a home, a place of hope. Laura participated in every decision. She chose colors for the walls, suggested play areas, even designed a garden where the children could play. Robert hired nutritionists, psychologists, social workers. He set up an industrial kitchen to prepare nutritious meals. He created support rooms where patients with serious illnesses and their families could find emotional support. Dr. Wallace agreed to be on the Foundation's medical board, impressed by Robert's vision. Dr. Fisher also joined, coordinating the psychological support program. At the inauguration 6 months later, hundreds of people attended. Officials, the press, future beneficiaries, former patients who had been inspired by Robert's story. But the most emotional moment was when Laura took the stage to speak. She was nervous, clutching the microphone with both hands, but her voice came out clear. "Hi, my name is Laura Maria Miller. A year and a half ago I was on the street, hungry and alone. No one looked at me. It was like I was invisible. But one day, a man saw me. He didn't just see me. He saw who I was on the inside." She looked at Robert, who was sitting in the front row with tears in his eyes. This man was sick. The doctors had said he was going to be gone soon. But I taught him what my grandma taught me, that love heals, and he got better. Then I got sick, and he took care of me. And I got better too. Laura took a deep breath. This foundation is so that other people can learn what we learned, that no one has to be alone. That good food feeds the body, but love feeds the soul. And when the soul is fed, the body can fight better too. The audience gave a standing ovation. Robert went up on stage and hugged Laura, and in that moment, photographers' flashes captured the image that would become the symbol of the foundation, father and daughter, embracing, smiling, alive. The Mariana Foundation opened its doors the following week. On the first day, 20 vulnerable children received full meals and nutritional counseling. 10 families of cancer patients participated in support groups. Robert visited the foundation daily. He talked with the children, listened to their stories, made sure each one felt seen. Laura accompanied him on weekends, playing with the younger kids, teaching the golden light ritual to anyone who wanted to learn. One day, a 7-year-old girl approached Laura. She was skeletal, her hair thin and brittle, her eyes large and scared. "Were you ever hungry?" the girl asked. "Yes, very hungry." "And you're not anymore?" Laura knelt to be at the girl's eye level. "Not anymore, because I found a family. And you'll find one too. It might not be by blood, but you'll find one." The girl looked around at the tables full of food, at the smiling volunteers, at Robert watching from a distance. "It's nice here." "It's safe here," Laura corrected. "And when you feel safe, you can grow. You can dream." As the foundation grew, Robert and Laura's story continued to inspire. Documentaries were made. Books were written. But for them, the most important thing was the individual lives they touched. There was the 9-year-old boy who arrived malnourished and left 6 months later healthy, full of dreams of becoming a chef. The mother who lost her fear of facing her cancer treatment after joining the support groups. The father who learned to talk about his emotions with his children. Each story was a brick building, a legacy far greater than any skyscraper Robert had ever erected. 2 years after the inauguration, on an ordinary evening, Robert and Laura were on the sofa. In the penthouse. She was growing up fast, already 10, taller, more confident, but they still kept their nightly rituals. "Dad, what's your treasure for today?" Laura asked. Robert thought. "Today I got the news that my scans are still clear. 2 years of complete remission." Laura smiled. "That's a big treasure." "And yours?" Laura snuggled against him. "My treasure is that 2 years ago you found me, and ever since then, every day has been a treasure." Robert hugged her, feeling a deep gratitude. "You know what's funny? I spent 50 years building things out of concrete. Buildings, malls, monuments. I thought that was my legacy. But none of it matters as much as you. Your buildings are cool," Laura joked, "but I think I'm better too." They laughed together, and the sound echoed through the home that was no longer empty. On the 5th anniversary of the Mariana Foundation, they had a big celebration. Hundreds of children who had been served came back to celebrate. Families shared testimonies of how emotional support had made a difference in their treatments. Laura, now 13, gave a speech again. She was taller, more mature, but her eyes still held that special light. "When I was little, I thought a miracle was something that fell from the sky, like magic. But I learned that a miracle is when we choose to believe that things can get better, even when everything seems impossible. A miracle is when we reach out a hand to someone, even when we're weak. A miracle is when we choose love over fear." She looked at Robert. "My dad taught me that. Not with words, with actions. Every day he chooses to be present, to be loving, to be family. And that changed my life. This foundation exists so that more people can make that choice, so that more miracles can happen." That night, back at home, Robert drove in silence. Laura noticed. "Thinking about something?" "I'm thinking about how my life almost ended 5 years ago, and how instead it truly began. Because of me? Because of us. Because we chose not to give up. Not on ourselves, and not on each other." Laura held his hand. Grandma was right about everything. Love really does heal. "It does," Robert agreed. "And it's not just about healing diseases. It's about healing loneliness, fear, hopelessness. It's about remembering that we're human and humans need connection. When they got home, they did the ritual as always. But this time, when they visualized the golden light, Robert imagined it spreading, flowing out from them, reaching every child at the foundation, every family in treatment, every lonely person looking for connection. Laura opened her eyes and smiled, as if she had seen the same thing. "It's growing," she said. "What is?" "The light, our love. It's growing and touching more people. That's how it works. The more you give, the more it grows." Robert pulled her into a hug. "How did I get so lucky to find you?" "It wasn't luck," Laura answered. "It was the universe putting the broken pieces back together. Remember?" "I remember. And look how whole we became." They held each other, father and daughter, two survivors who had found not just salvation in each other, but purpose. They had proven that family is not defined by blood, but by a daily choice, that wealth without love is poverty, and that love with dedication is the greatest fortune of all. And as the city glittered outside, inside that home that was no longer empty, two hearts beat in sync, united by an impossible journey that had begun with despair and blossomed into hope. Because in the end, as Laura's grandmother always knew, love really does heal. Not just the body, but the soul. And when two souls heal together, they create ripples that reach the entire world. End of story. If Robert and Laura's journey touched your heart, know that we have many other inspiring stories that celebrate the power of love, family, and human resilience. Stories that remind us that it's never too late to start over, and that the deepest connections often arise in the most unexpected moments. If you believe in the transformative power of love and want to continue exploring narratives that warm the soul and renew hope, subscribe to the channel, leave a like so more people can find these messages of light, and tell us in the comments which part of this story resonated with you the most. Your story of overcoming is also important, and we want to hear it. Together, we continue to spread love and inspiration. Until the next journey.